Chair now recognizes the gentleman from Maine, Mr. Poliquin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Secretary, you and I have been looking at each other across these two tables for 4 hours. We both should have medals for doing this, but I am thrilled to death that we finally have a chance to have a dialogue, sir. You oversee a very large agency, Mr. Castro, about 8,000 employees with an annual budget of $46 billion. Is that right, sir? Okay. And Mr. Tipton mentioned just a minute ago, along with others, that you folks backstop with taxpayer dollars more than half of every home mortgage in America. Is that correct, sir? Thank you.
We have a significant market share.
Thank you. And you do that by using, again, taxpayer dollars to backstop this insurance in the event that there is a problem in the market. Now, in 2007, before the housing crash, before the Great Recession, you folks had about $410 billion worth of mortgage insurance that the taxpayers were on the hook for. Now that number is $1.1 trillion. Okay? So my question is, and to dovetail what Mr. Tipton said, how big do you want to get, sir?
Congressman, thanks for the question. I think you and I may have a different way of looking at this. If you're talking about the amount of insurance in force, then it's certainly true that I believe that's over $1 trillion now.
Yeah, $1.1 trillion, yes, sir.
And as I mentioned in the conversation, we saw FHA play its traditional.
Is $2 trillion? How about $3 trillion? Maybe $4 trillion.
I
Do you have a number, sir? You must have a plan. You're running a very large, very significant organization. You must have a business plan. How big do you want to get, sir?
We're going to continue to serve the market that FHA was created by statute to serve.
Do you think going from $410 billion before the crash, housing market crash, now to $1.1 trillion, and you've just said, I think, or you implied that you're not quite sure how far you want to go, do you think that increases the risk to the taxpayer who's backing up your product or not, sir?
The goal that we have is to ensure
I think we can both agree it probably increases the risk to the taxpayer since they're more on the hook now than they were several years ago. Is that correct?
Not at all. Not at all.
No.
I think that confuses the case.
Okay.
I think that is just a confused way of looking at this. The fact is that we have $46 billion in cash reserves right now. There has not been a time.
But the taxpayers are on the hook for $1.1 trillion. Is that correct?
There has not been a time at FHA where.
But they're on the hook for $1.1 trillion. Is that correct?
There has not been a time.
We've been sitting here for 4 hours, Mr. Castro, looking at each other. Very straightforward question. They're on the hook for $1.1.
They're not on the hook for that because that has not been presented in terms of claims. And so the fact is.
But if there were to be claims, they'd be on the hook for that amount of money. Is that correct?
I'm not going to address a hypothetical.
Okay.
That hasn't happened.
The mortgage bankers have indicated with data that FHA loans are much more delinquent than those from the non-government financial institutions. We've talked about that. In addition to that, your mission statement says in part, operate with a high degree of public and fiscal accountability, fiscal prudence. Do you think having a huge government organization that's responsible for more than half of all the mortgage insurance in America, what puts the taxpayers on the hook for $1.1 trillion, and then you folks don't know how big you want to get, do you think that lives up to your mission statement of being fiscally accountable, fiscally prudent, sir?
We have taken steps to continue to be fiscally prudent. Perhaps we just have a different view of whether the government has any role. I believe that it does. I believe that it's important, and we've seen at times when the private sector did not serve this unique
Let's talk about the private sector, if I may.
FHA has done.
Let's talk about the private sector, Mr. Castro, if you don't mind. I believe that your organization is a classic example of a large government entity that is crowding out non-government entities from participating in this market, that puts the taxpayers more and more on the hook because you want to get presumably as big as you can. Now, is there someone by the name of Carol Galante that works for you, sir?
Well, Carol Galante was the previous FHA.
Does she work with you now?
Is she
at your organization?
She is not. As of November,
okay.
She's no longer there.
But about a year and a half ago, she indicated that you folks, and I'd be thrilled to end this way, sir, would be open to an opportunity to help open up the mortgage insurance market to non-government entities. Would you be willing to consider having non-government entities work in tandem with you folks such that they can participate in a market that you now dominate that will add more jobs and more stability to the housing market? Would you be interested in that, sir?
Yeah, if your question, Congressman, was about risk sharing,
yes, it is.
And we indicated earlier that that's a dialogue we're willing to have.
Great. I will call your office tomorrow, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you, Mr. Castro.
Time of the gentleman has expired. The Chair now recognizes the gentle lady.